Hey everyone, welcome to the show. If you're joining us with any other AP tests, you already know the drill of what's going on today. If you by chance happen to start searching AP Calculus live streams and you came across ones from last year with the digital AP exam, you already know who I am. My name is Chris. I'm with the Princeton Review. I'm here to show you a couple of ins and outs and how to tackle this test. The good news about calculus test, it's kind of awesome, honestly. It's not the calculus that's going to trip you up. No, the calculus is actually the easy part of calculus. Your job is to not get tripped up in the 50 billion steps of algebra. That's what I'm going to try to home in on today. Get you a couple in and out techniques on just how to get what you need to get the job done. And that's it. With the multiple choice format of the test, you can't ignore your answers. It's kind of the best thing ever because your answers are going to let you know how much, and even more so, how little work you actually have to do to get the credit that you deserve. And so I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself real quick for anybody who's brand new to the show. That's this guy. I started the Princeton Review way back in 2004 in June, and I have gotten certified in every single test that we offer with the company, except for the MCAT test. I cannot stand tests that last that ridiculously long in time. With that, will later content cover BC topics? It can. I know we advertise this as Calc AB. Everything that gets discussed today, I promise you, is absolutely on your BC test. If anything, I would recommend checking out the Cracking the Princeton Review book for the Calculus BC edition. That way, in addition to all the content that you're going to have today, you'll have a handful of amazing practice tests. You're going to see very crystal clear content related to what's required to know for it, and you're going to be miles ahead of the competition that else is going to take this test. But I do hope that helps, and I'll absolutely keep an active eye in the chat window. I'll try to do my best to bring some BC concepts into it. It is technically a program for the AB test, and you are absolutely mandatorily required to know everything I'm going to be showing you today. So that's me. Again, I studied math at University of Central Florida. I think I liked math only because it's exact. 2 plus 2 is always 4. It never changes. And so I just kind of never had to think about it, thankfully. I'm very thankful that math was my strength. I also love food. So I became a classically trained French chef with the Orlando Culinary Academy of Cordon Bleu. And I specialize in advanced baking and pastries, as well as all aspects hospitality management. I am so good at my job with the Princeton Review that I'm actually allowed to teach the teachers. Now, I became a master's trainer with the Princeton Review back in 2005 and started with SAT tests and then just moved up from there. Basically, I'm responsible for showing people how to teach you all how to do this stuff. So I'm that, what, fourth wall break? Horrible Deadpool reference. Anyway, then I'm also a content development author. I have actually authored or edited 3 publications through Princeton Review and Random House for the calculus. I've been teaching calculus since 1999, I believe, and just hobbies there. Basically, all that just adds up to I'm a big geek. I just kind of like what I do. I'm really good at what I do. So I'm trying to show you the easiest ways to tackle these tests. Starting out with just a handful of little cool tricks that you may not be aware of. You already know this table more than likely. Maybe you just had to fill it on the unit circle grid. A lot of teachers I know, they just simply put the unit circle like a blank sheet of paper, just make you kind of fill out everything. Not really like explaining how and why they get to what they do. With that being said, just think about like some consistencies in the way to put it together. As you already are very well aware, every single one of these values, well, in the sign row, you're going to be creating a fraction. Everything is cut by 2. And everything in the numerator has a square root. Friendliest way to remember, kind of doing like a little skill build here, just start counting up from 0. And you've got everything you need. Yay, best move ever. That's the only row you need to know how to do. And again, I cannot stress enough, you only need to know how to count up to 4 starting from 0. Because to do the exact same thing with the final 2 rows, well, you're going to be setting up your fractions in the cosine row. Everything in the denominator is going to be a 2. And all your numerators have a radical yet again. With this case, though, you're just going to count up from 0, starting backwards. That's it. Love it. And so that's just like a nice little way to kind of keep everything in check. The only thing you really have to be careful about then is going to be like the whole all students take calculus, which I'll have up shortly. But now with these sine and cosine values known to figure out the tangent, You guessed it. You just got to take anything with your sine divided by your cosine, and voila, you've got the bottom row. And so, like the sine of 0 is 0. 0 divided by anything. Yeah, you guessed it. Boom. 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2. We know we would have to divide by the fraction. People say keep it, change it, flip it. I still to this day have absolutely no idea what that even means. So if that's how you know it, yeah, run with it. 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2. Well, you're just going to be having the radical in the denominator now, and you're going to rationalize. You'll end up ultimately with the root 3 over 3. Anything divided by itself, remember, sine and cosine are exactly equal to each other. You get the number 1. Anything with the 60, that's going to be the reciprocal of the 30 for the tangent. And so essentially just the radical 3. Anything divided by 0, check it in your calculator. Whoops, don't do that. If you try to type it in your calculator will actually explode. No, I'm just kidding. That's a lie. Lying's not good for the soul. Now, you can't ever divide by 0. It's called undefined. It breaks every rule in the world. If your calculator can't do it, you definitely cannot do it. And so with that, it's just a cool way to kind of count your way up to it. Even cooler than that, 'cause I know they don't give you limitless room in your test books or even on like for scratch paper, whatever. Here, well, you can kind of know everything just by like going looking at your hand. Again, if you've already checked out my other video, you've seen this. I like to show this shortcut all the time because not a lot of people know about it. Starting with your pinky from here, you're going to go 0. Your ring finger will be 30. Your middle finger 45. Your index finger 60. Your thumb 90. And so like here, I want to put the blank table up just so you can see how I'm assigning my degrees. I'm going to put back the solutions now. If I want to find out the sine of 45, well, that's going to be the middle finger. You're going to fold it down. We already know sine and cosine are equal to each other. The secret, your lower fingers, those are all your sine numerators. Your upper fingers are your cosine numerators. And so everything's already a radical cut in half. I just have to put a root 2 over 2 and a root 2 over 2 for sine and cosine. So if I want to find the 30 degree, I'm going to go ahead and fold down my ring finger. I have one finger there, and yep, you guessed it, you've got the 1/2. Your 3 above the folded finger, that's for your cosine, root 3 over 2. And so again, just another cool little way to keep in mind where you can get all the values that you need to fill out these table calculations or to be aware of them at any point in time on the test. Again, the only curveball, you're gonna have to look out for when you need to know like the signs of each of them. And that's what I'm gonna have up here. Like, is it true that all students take calculus? I mean, I wish, honestly, it's really a very friendly subject. It's kind of cool, everything that you can really do with it. All that we remember with this, the ASTC, you just have to remember where your trig values are positive. We already know the all. As which quadrant do we start with for all of them being positive? And feel free to let Kelsey know. Put either like the sign in the window or the word if you want. Either way, the Roman numeral. Which quadrant is everything positive? Couple more seconds. If you are putting in your chat window or suggesting quadrant 1, you are correct. Every single thing is positive up here. And so that's when, well, now my follow-up question, to figure out the students to take the calculus, am I going to go counterclockwise or am I going clockwise to fill that out? Do I start at quadrant 1 and go 2, 3, 4? Do I start at quadrant 1 and go 4, 3, 2? I'll let Kelsey know. She's my awesome helper today. Welcome her all, everybody. And don't mind me, I'm just going to label the quadrants as they are already. But so if for the sine, you got a quadrant 2, outstanding. And so your sine would be your positive ones here. You already know sine correlates to your y coordinates, and above the x-axis is where sine is always positive. So that's where your y's are always positive. If you're going to the third quadrant, well, we know that sine divided by cosine is going to equal the tangent. I'm below the x-axis, so that's a negative sign, and I'm to the left of the y-axis. That's a negative cosine. And so that's why we have the students take calculus. Tangent here. And then to the right of the y-axis, your cosine's positive. Voila. Just have to remember, and again, it's not necessarily like going to be every single question that lets you know like where you're going at, but if they do ever put a restriction in your domain, you do have to be absolutely perfectly aware of what signs these all have to take on. Because another cool little thing to keep in mind, some of the most common formulas, like when you're doing rewrites of expressions to make like taking derivatives or integrating easier, you do have to be prepared with a handful of them. I just want to show a couple quick ones to remember with your Pythagorean identities. And again, very likely that you may have encountered or stumbled upon this in some way, shape, or form. I just want to put it up here for efficiency's sake. You just need to know the big one. The sine squared and cosine squared added together equal to 1. Then you can figure out the other two. To get to the other two, you are going to first take that equation 1, divide everything by cosine squared. Just let it fly, see what happens. And so if I do that, well, you're already going to know that part. And then we're going to have something divided by itself, which is fantastic. I apologize, my stylus is not putting up clearly here. I actually have like very nice handwriting, and I apologize if it's not crystal clear. And so you may already be figuring out, like, this is absolutely one of the other big ones you need to know. Sine divided by cosine, you're going to get your tangent. And so tangent squared of theta, whichever, anything divided by itself, plus the 1, and then the 1 over the cosine, well, the 1 over the cosine squared. You've got your secant squared. And that's going to be your second Pythagorean identity. The third one, well, we just divided everything by the cosine squared. I'm now going to flip the script. I'm going to divide everything by the sine squared. And so if we do that, well, sine squared divided by itself, cosine squared divided by the sine squared. You already know that one. And then the 1 over the sine squared, which you do know that as well. And so, as we saw in the second one, anything divided by itself, we already well know that is going to be the 1. Cosine divided by the sine, reciprocal of the tangent, or the cotangent. And equals 1 over the sine squared. You got it, the cosecant squared. And so again, I know like they do put this in some textbooks for you to keep an eye out for. I just like to show it up here again for efficiency's sake. You're gonna find out very quickly that like I love my job. I get to take these tests and I get to teach people how to take these. Way big thing on any test that is time consuming. People spend way too much time doing stuff that they never should. If I can ever show you how to do any of these problems with like zero work at all, that's the dream. I promise never to keep that from you. It's just about knowing when you're done with the question. Trust me. Don't overdo it. Not on the test like this. You don't have limitless time. Limitless. Calculus. I did that. It worked. I'm going to drop one of these on myself because I earned it. And so finally, nothing at all new in this table. You already know the deal here. Just notice the right-hand side. Those are all of your negative derivatives. Please do not ever forget, if you're taking any derivative of a function starting with the you always have to have a negative derivative, or you have to do the sign change. That's what I have like written down here. Any of the trig functions starting with the you better have the negative derivative. With the multiple choice test, that's the underlying beauty. The test writers, they're not just creating like ridiculous answers. No, they're creating tricky answers. Consider the source. This is coming directly from College Board. These people who actually make a legitimately fair test, the AP Calculus, AP exams in general, they are good tests. Everybody learns the exact same information every single year at the exact same time of the year. I promise. SAT is the other test that they make. And I'll tell you what, if you've seen any of my live streams for that, you know I despise the SAT test. I'm really good at it, don't get me wrong, but that is a ridiculous test. It doesn't measure any intelligence at all. How can the people who make that test make this test? All that means they structure it the same way in the multiple choice world. You just have to look for the clues to take out the trash. In a test multiple choice question in which you have 4 answers, 3 of them are garbage. Your job is to take the 70% of the test that's garbage and take out the trash. That's it. How you get there, that's your call. I can just show you the efficient ways to get there. I always want everybody taking an easier test. Know your limits. Oh, that's a double entendre. Again, I'm clocking it today. And so with AP Calc exam, just a little bit about the structure. Now we're getting right into the content. I actually want to get through like just kind of a practice test with you all, let you have a little time to try a couple questions and we review the setups. Now you're going to see with the AB exam, and for my student who asked about the BC exam on collegeboard.com or collegeboard.org for the AP, I'm sure you've already been there so many times. You'll be able to take out the structure there. That should be just about exactly perfectly identical. But yeah, you're going to see multiple choices what you kick out. And the section 1 is the no calculator. Again, that's kind of like what we're going to be starting with when we get in here. See how good you are without the calculator. I promise you, the calculator section's going to be okay. If you're good with the no calculator, you're going to be okay. With that, though, notice they're very generous on the time. Almost too generous. It is very possible to finish that with a lot of time left over, which ironically is just enough time to make you go back to your other questions and second guess life in general. Do you ever have a correct answer? Left to come back to it, you're looking over and you thought you caught a mistake, you started second guessing yourself, and you changed it only to get it back like a day later and figure out, oh man, I had that. I mean, I know whenever that happened to me, I didn't react like that. Like I was lit. It's the most frustrating experience in any test taking situation. Trust your gut. I actually had to kind of like catch myself on doing, like stop myself from doing it. Anytime I would answer a question correctly, if you know you're done with the question, just mark it to yourself, like put a big X or something, or like on your list of question numbers, anything, something to let you know, do not at all return to that question. For the section or part B now, the section 1, you're going to see they cut a little bit of time on it, but then they cut the question count in half. You have a luxurious amount of time here. Not saying it's automatically going to be something you may finish with time to spare. I'm saying you still can. It is a multiple choice test. With that, though, you want to make sure that when you're going through these questions, it's put in an order designed to make you either panic, freak out, make mistakes, anything. The test is going to be in a random difficulty setting. You've got to kind of embrace your POOD. It's what we affectionately call your personal order of difficulty. What's easy for me is not necessarily easy for you. What's easy for you, not necessarily easy for me. That's the beauty of an open section. You can go wherever you want to go with the test. The free response questions, I know back in the day, these are the ones that I always despise. Like I'm a applied mathematician. I can look at a math question, I know how to do it. I don't like theorems. I don't like proofs, yet I love calculus. I digress. I'm just saying on those free response questions, again, you're looking for a couple of points earned in a question. You just got to do what they're requiring you to do. You don't necessarily have to simplify. You just have to follow the directions, where they're asking you for. Like when we get into these multiple choice questions shortly, you're going to see like, if you have to take a first derivative and then like figure out the slope at a certain point, don't simplify the derivative. Plug in as soon as you get that first line of work and just get the answer and run. Just have to know how to take an easy for you test first. With those first 2 questions though in the free response, don't forget you are able to use your calculator there. In the time limit up for the 30 minutes, do you have to like put away section 2 forever necessarily? For any time like now, you're probably in your 4th quarter of class, definitely making your way through. You're getting ready for the APs. So, I mean, you're there. You've probably been doing nonstop free response questions, full practice tests, just to kind of get comfortable with the structure and the gridding. Check out collegeboard.org for every single AP, A, B, and BC free response test. They post those almost like instantaneously. Just with these, once you're done with those first 2, no calculator for the rest of it, you can absolutely come back to part A if need be. With that, just you cannot at all touch a calculator. So really be careful to make sure when you're leaving section 2, you don't, or that first 2 questions, you don't need your calculator for anything else because forbidden. And then, well, again, with the breakdowns, for the most part, schools, you're usually looking at getting up over the 3. Not every school, though, will let the 3 fly. Sometimes you got to get a 4 or a 5 only. And it's really going to be each individual school, and they're usually pretty good about posting it on their websites for admissions criteria. If you do not know or are uncertain, it can't hurt just to check out their website and then reach out to them. Give them a call. You're the commodity in this whole experience. Like, they want you way more than you want them. Have them answer the questions for you directly. And now the content topics. And so again, like this is gonna be the bulk of it right away. It looks so much friendlier when it's just in that standpoint. Who knew that there were so many subtle nuances, though, with everything that you see on your screen right now? It really does depend on the question, the way that's provided to you, and what you're going to have to do to get the job done. With that, though, this list, remember, this is going to be the content for the AB exam, but it's also the content included on the BC exam. Plus, your good old friends, Taylor McLaurin, more difficult techniques of anti differentiation, all that good stuff. I love integration by parts. I really hate that I just said that out loud. And so again, there's several different ways. Usually, if you're going into an AP class, you're looking for the college credit. No way around that. I mean, that really is the shine of this. Get out of the way in school so you can finish college sooner and just be happy. With this, it's ultimately just going to be about knowing what you need to do to get the job done. There is no penalty in getting questions wrong with the multiple choice structure. What that means is you're never allowed to leave a question blank, like ever again on this test. You may not work every question. I promise you, you will absolutely answer every question. You're never allowed to leave it blank. Make sure you're adjusting for the time. And a lot of people, whether it's like on the paper pencil test, will try to like bubble after every question. So it's like going back and forth and back and forth. I sincerely despise cardio. So, I mean, that sounds exhausting. Don't bubble after every question. It's actually kind of ridiculous. That's a lot of time if you're going back and forth. Stop multitasking. Just commit 2 pages in front of you, answer whichever questions are quickest for you, jot the letter next to the question number before you turn the page, transfer your answers. First of all, it's just relaxing. Kind of gives you like a little bubble break where legitimately all you're getting graded on there is coloring inside the lines. Trust me, I looked it up. Just take an efficient test. There's actually a logical structure to like what you need to do. Just be mechanical in your approaches. Don't overload yourself. And I'm not at all kidding. It's actually ridiculous looking back and thinking if you bubble after every question, quit. I've come to terms with it. So can you. Well, with the multiple choice questions again, just don't forget, it's going to be the 50% of your entire score. Now, that's going to be for both the calculator and no calculator components. The grand total time, 105 minutes here, nothing impossible ever. I know you know that. Just need to make sure that you're going after the ones that you know how to do. And even if you get caught off guard by a question completely, don't panic. Maybe you just need to get a little further in the section and something's going to jog your memory. Maybe you don't remember the mean value theorem technically. Anything can help like reset all of that for you. Don't panic. You're not locked in. Skip ahead when you need to. Come back. It's not going anywhere, I promise you. And then with the guessing, we already know like you should be prepared to mark your answer. That's where you can kind of start identifying like things as 3 categories: now, later, and what. Basically, the now, you know how to do. If you were blindfolded, hands tied behind you, you could still get the question correct. You do those, you find them anywhere in that section and you kick them out of the park. Like, get them done. The later, you're going to know how to do them. They just take you a little bit of time to get your bearings and you had to set up and everything. Come back, mark those, circle the question number. If you're looking at a question, you just know no matter what. I don't even know what it's saying. It may as well be written in ancient Sanskrit. You're never ever going to answer that question, do the work for the question. So you want to just drop what we call like your whole letter of the day, an LOTD. Consistent guess letter, just so you don't have to like overthink, overanalyze. If at all possible, try to cross out any like too good to be true answers. But if you really have no concept or grasp at all on the concept in the question tested, you're just going to mark like your letter of the day. Like mine is C. C for correct, C for Chris. Boom, I did that. And just being very careful with these. It's just about taking the easy for you test first. Because like, you have a wealth of option in the multiple choice test. In the free response, you already know there's not a whole lot of option. Not many places to turn, quite honestly. And so with these, you kind of just have to like go to the parts of the question that you feel the most comfortable for. Don't just not write anything. Remember, this is not an all or nothing structured score. They have key components in how they graded these exams. You're looking for how to get those points. Like when you're checking on collegeboard.org, if you check out the number of questions like that you need to actually fall into a 5 category, it's nowhere near the complete number of questions in this test. It's just about knowing what you have to do to get the job done. And you're the only one who can know that and know how to spot it. Play to your strengths. That's all I'll ever say to you. Know what you know how to do, and just go and crush it. You do have to be prepared to keep these 3 in mind, though. You have to be able to answer the question they're asking. When they say explain or justify, and if you're in the calculator section, I know you already know you can't use any calculator type at all. That's exactly incorrect. Like they'll right away just zero that part of it. Now you need to like show exactly the reasoning through it. Don't assume the reader knows what your thought process is, and do not make it a challenge for them to read. Like they are told to like look through and grade carefully, scan for the answers. Just show some logical structure to it. Be clear in your progression of your ideas. You're only going to use the space you need in terms of, well, do you absolutely have to like simplify, or do you just have to set up but not simplify? Do you need to figure out the exact value? If you're in the calculator section, yeah, you're going to set up the expression, then you're going to let your calculator do everything else for you and just put the answer. That's beautiful. You don't have to waste your valuable time trying to put every single step. But you do always need to know your entire job. Like in all honesty, like this one has to take like the very most important part. If you're going to do a question, if you're going to commit to it truthfully, make that your goal. Like you need to know what they're asking for. You can even begin starting to even think or even write the solutions. So apologies, a lot of me talking. All right, if you've got scratch paper, go ahead, take it on out. I'm just going to go through a whole bunch of test questions with you, as many as we can, and just see what's up. I'm going to give you a little bit of time first, of course, you to have a fair chance at it, and then we'll talk about methods of efficiency, just making sure and seeing, like, kind of comparing notes. Do you know when you're actually done with your multiple choice question? I know I can't wait. I mean, this sadly is. I'm the biggest geek in the world. Love calculus. And so solve each of the following problems using the available space for scratch work. And it's not really a crazy amount, but thankfully, that's a good way to kind of remember that you don't have to do all the work to get the answer. And then you'll notice like it always just have the specifications of the domain down here. Nothing new on this slide at all. I know with where you're at in your course, you've been doing nonstop practice tests. So on with the show. Well, you know, like in this part of the test, you'd have 2 minutes a question. I'm not going to give like 2 minutes per. If that's okay. I'm going to kind of compromise between the 1 and the 2. I'll put a minute 30, maybe a minute 15. I want to get through a lot of questions today. See what you get. If anything, give a shout out to Kels when you have it. I would say try to hold off a little bit later, but you have a fair chance, of course. But and just in case you can't see, the countdown timer should be in the upper right-hand part of the corner. I'm going to be quiet, though I do love hearing myself talk. 30 seconds remaining. Start preparing to mark your final answer selection and or letter of the day. No blanks whatsoever. All right. And forgive me, I don't remember hearing myself saying it out loud and I'm thinking about it, but the letter of the day, what I mean, it's going to be a consistent way to keep track of the numbers that you're guessing or the letters that you're guessing. Answer B showed up in the chat window. Outstanding work. If anything, a quick recap with this. What is the application like differentiation that we're dealing with here? Chain rule, power rule, quotient, product, limit, definition of a derivative. Dear Lord, no, just kidding. What's going on there? And here's a great job, everybody who got the B. Boom. And I'll keep an eye on the chat window if you're letting Kelsey know. If anything, one of the good things that we're looking here, it's gonna be like trying to find your G prime here, your first derivative. Very nice. Yes, the B's are flying in. And so now here, with the whole g prime of 4, the beautiful thing about this, you're going to do your first line of your derivative and then immediately plug in as quickly as possible. You just have to make sure that your calculus step is set. Then stop the work, throw to the number. And so if you're thinking use the power rule, beautiful. We already know the power rule. You're going to take the exponent multiply out front and then subtract 1. So 4, can't write with a straight line tool. 4 times the 1 over 32x cubed minus 10x. And now I'm just going to go ahead and plug the 4 in anywhere. If anything, though, I know I'm going to have a minus 40 here. And I'm going to take a fraction of 4 cubed, specifically an eighth of 64. There's no possible way the value is positive. And negative 72 is too small. Like here, you can reason your way by looking at the answers for the insights, just about dodgy arithmetic in case there's a potential where the answers could be very close together. 75% of your test is garbage. Look for ways to take out the trash. At times you may have to be aggressive. Moving right along. Very nice. And so, ooh, I like this. So I'll put the time up again. Just give it a whirl. Just be very careful with your trig limits. I may be mistaken, Kels, if I create a poll, it doesn't go to them, like it lets you submit the answers, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. "30 seconds remaining." Gotcha. All right. Oh yeah, it's a practice calculus exam. Like this is already a different concept than the other question. It is definitely. All right, rock stars, hit it up, Kelsey. Let her know what'd you get. Vote for A. Beautiful. Nice. If you're submitting your answer A, outstanding here. Usually with the limits, we know the dream. You should hopefully be able to just plug in the value and calculate your limit right away. That is always the dream. Like for any quadratic you've ever encountered, you always are thinking of a way to factor it before having to use a quadratic formula. Here, though, it's in the indeterminate form. If you remember hearing that expression, you already know what I'm bringing this to. Kind of like the best thing ever when it comes to limits, quite honestly. A little bit of L'Hopital. The indeterminate form in this case, you plug the 0 in up top, you got the 0. You plug the 0 on the bottom, 1 minus 1, yikes. L'Hopital to the rescue. But will I only need to do it once here? That would potentially be the sneaky part. So if we take the derivative of it first up top of our 16x, it is a co-function. Don't forget your derivative's got to be negative. Negative sine x. Am I good with x equals 0 here? Do we have to go one more time? I think there might be like a little slight delay or something. Apologies if it's a time issue. With that, well, I can't directly plug the 0 in. I get the indeterminate form yet again. So if we take one more derivative, game, set, match, we're going to get our constant up top, yay. And then down the bottom, well, it's keeping the negative still. You're going to have a negative cosine of x. And so if I can plug in the zero now, we know cosine of zero, just one. You could use your hand to determine the values as well, either way. You get the negative sign though, solidifying A all the way. And so in terms of like noticing along the way, notice you got the 50-50 again with the whole positive versus negative. Look for ways. The second that you know the negative sign is sticking around, you can get rid of the C and the D. The cosine, if you're dealing with your X values, you're gonna know like right away when you're doing derivatives, the sign's gonna go away or not. All right. Different limit concept now. What would be beautiful on one question necessarily with the technique isn't necessarily the most efficient way to tackle all of them. Look for the friendly way. Just past the 30-second mark. I might drop it down to a minute question, depending on the question. Prepare to mark your final answer or letter of the day. Sound up. Let Kelsey know what you ended up with here. Vote for C right away. Anyone else? And if you are typing your answer into like Kelsey know if anything, Marshall, what did you use to get it done? Did you go like a little L'Hopital's rule here? Did you go something else? This is kind of one of the very first concepts ever brought up in any calculus class ever. Caesar coming in beautifully, everybody kicking it. Outstanding. If anything, well, we want to try to plug in always when we get the chance. We can't, though. We know we'll have like our zero over zero. If anything, though, just look at either L'Hopital's or a way to factor, honestly. If you just factor it, it kind of keeps your algebra skills sharp and everything. And still another way to look at it. If you ever need like a variety of different ways to look at the limits, it's just going to be about remembering trying to start with the easiest part and working your way down the list. We already know with math, there are hundreds of ways to do every single question potentially. With this one, though, if I just factor the top, it is the difference of two squares. And so it's going to factor automatically to the x plus 5, x minus 5. And we're going to have that removable discontinuity that we get rid of. And then you can plug and play the 5 plus 5, game, set, match. Very nice. And so with that, we know right now the very first part of the course, you're obviously with your limit definitions. You're dealing with the base, you're then dealing with limits at infinity, you're dealing with all of these, factor the numerator, beautiful, excellent, excellent. With the other parts, you get into like the L'Hopital's, but have to get rid of differential calculus. When you do get into differential calculus, you learn the longest way ever, and then you learn the best way ever. Let me know what you get. I'll put the timer up. Give it a whirl. 30-second time warning. prepare to mark your final answer selection and or letter of the day. No blanks. Sound off. Let Kels know what she ended up with. Vote for D right away. And so I'll keep an active eye on the chat window, I promise. With this now, it more than likely did not take you more than 10 seconds to get this answer for real. With this, nicely done. With the whole quotient rule, just please don't ever start working these. Look at your answers. A, how? No, like you never are just going to do a derivative of a numerator divided by the derivative. No, shut it down. That's impossible. B, very deceptive at first. But that's why they put it early on. Your denominator is not squared. We're going to shut it down. And if we're looking at C or D, well, it's low derivative high. Oh, that has to be not C. Game over. And so without doing any work, you can absolutely get your answer here. You just have to know what they're giving to you and choose from. Don't forget, with a multiple choice answer, it is the best thing ever. Just look for the garbage, get rid of it. Take an easier test. Trust me. Just get that on a shirt. Oh, I remember that. Oof. Definitely remember this one. This was the annoying part of calculus. Of course, they slap you in the face with a shortcut in the very next class. Twenty seconds remaining. All right, let Kels know. If anything, what I was saying at the beginning there, it looks very familiar to a certain a definition of something. I'll keep an eye on the chat. Vote for C. Seconded. And trifecta, outstanding. And so what's going on here now? Just have to make sure that you're still keeping track of what you have to do. Don't ever let something catch you off guard with the way that it's structured. Remember, you have already done the hardest part of everything in calculus, for real. With that being said, when you're going into the limits of the trigonometric functions, just be careful, making sure like when you plug them in right away, you want to see if you can go into like your L'Hopital's form. If anything here, you know, the whole limit is h goes to 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. Here, this is going to be that definition of the derivative. And so we're dealing with the derivative of the tangent of x when x equals pi over 4. And it's just going to be carefully going through, making sure that you're looking to identify the consistent relationships that you're already aware of. This is one of the first things you ever learn in chapter 3 when you're first discussing the secant lines, the tangent lines, the derivatives. When you get into the power rule, the product rule, the quotient rule, and all of that good stuff, that's when the dream becomes the best. Here, though, they're just trying to trip you up on a quick derivative. Don't overthink. Oh, yes. This was one of my favorite things ever. This can actually be the very trickiest part of it. I might put 130 for this one. Just be careful. We're at the halfway point. Prepare to mark your final answer selection and or letter of the day. Alrighty. So on integration, it's never bad when you first start out dealing with it. And then when you get further into integration, you learn a lot of cool little ways to like tackle these things. More likely than not, you're usually gonna maybe lean toward a harder way of integrating rather than like trying out with a straightforward, easy one first. Especially like if you get into Calc BC, you're gonna know one of the chapters, the technique of antidifferentiation. They just give you a table of like 100 integrals, you got to kind of make your way through them, trying anything and everything. Here, though, don't forget about the algebraic simplification first. Anytime that you can do that, please do that. If anything, just kind of rewriting the integrand. Just no, I didn't see any answers popping up in the chat window now. Let Kelsey know if you did arrive at an answer. If you didn't, that's fine. We'll take a look at the solution, of course. But if anything, I'll start writing the algebra. And so now all I'm doing so far is I'm going through just restructuring the integrand. Essentially, I want to get my constant out in front for real. My answers already clue me into like that's going to be a part of it no matter what. So I'm just kind of getting it out of the way for real. X to the first power times x to the 1/2. I'm multiplying two things by the same base. So I'm going to have to add my exponents. Should be x to the 3/2. And so that's going to be the integrand. And then it's just the power rule for integration. That's it. And we know we're going to have to add 1 to the x1, then divide by that fraction. And so 1 there should have the radical 3. Well, I'm going to have to get, what, the 5 halves? So I can ballpark out C and D. Don't pick those. I'm going to have a 5 in the numerator, and now it's going to be the 5/2. Am I dividing by a fraction? Got to do something else first. I love math, even more so. I love being lazy on the multiple choice test. Preserve the sanity. Let the answers clue you into what they want you to make a mistake on. So, applying the power rule, dividing by the fraction, which means multiplying by the reciprocal. Correct answer, A all the way, my friends. And so now this could be a question where it could easily catch you off guard. And look where you're at. This is number 6. You got a couple more questions to go, 24 more of them. Don't let something like this slow you down. Of course, again, you're in control of the test. Move on from it. Go and do something more time efficient. Don't stress if it gets caught off guard here. Just have to step away. Go and reset your thought process with something else. It's always a good call. I hope that helps. So keep an eye out for questions right there. I didn't see a whole lot of answers suggested here. So it is something that can just randomly sneak up on you for real. Just be careful. Ooh, continuity. I always kind of hated these back in the day. Uh, I just like doing math questions. I don't want to know like the whole behind the scenes of it and everything, but I'll go ahead and set the time on this one. Do my best to keep an eye out for like any questions at all if there are questions. Could use integration parts for 6. I started the timing on this one. Let me look back at just to make sure. You should be able to because you got the linear with the radical, but the algebraic manipulation is so much friendlier, in all honesty. I'm not saying you can't, but I mean, you kind of want to use it for when you're dealing with like an exponential and a trig function or an exponential and a variable. I hope that makes sense. I love integration by parts, though, for real. It is one of my favorite things to do. Rational fraction or partial fraction decomposition as well. I always recommend trying the algebra first, just to be safe. All right, 20 seconds remaining. Sorry, computer's wobbly. That'll do. All right, so continuity, definitely something that when you are determining, like, it's important for like a couple of things. Like we know if there's a cost for something, we can't take a derivative of it. When we're determining continuity, we need to make sure if we're finding like a value if it is at a certain point. Let me know in the chat, or like Kelsey in the chat if you arrived at it. You got a B question mark. And so, if anything, then, well, let me put this up real quick. In continuity with calculus, there has to be a sequence of three things that need to be qualified here. It's going to be like a while since you came across it, but here, your three conditions right away. For it to be continuous, we know we have to qualify like the big three there that have to be qualified. If any of them fail right away, it is not a continuous function. And so, with that being said, there could be the questions where you just have to determine whether or not it's going to be continuous, and it all depends upon the numbers that you can plug in when you're able to. And so, like for this one, in the example one, it says like you have to find if f of 2 exists. We know we can plug it in here. We then have to make sure that we can find the limit for both the left and the right hand sides to make sure they're existing. And then conditions 1 and 2 have to equal each other. And so when we go through with that one, you just need to make sure being careful, plugging in everything going along the way. Well, now with the question here, I saw just the one suggestion for the answer B. Anything that you tried specifically that you want to let us know, Harshal? I see you put the answer. So, if anything, we can kind of like piece together those steps, see if you felt like where you felt like confident up to. If anything, we know we've got to find a continuous. And so if we're dealing with x equals 1, we know we've got to be able to assess the limit is going to provide the same results that actually exist, making sure that they set them equal to each other. And keep an eye for the chat just in case. Or did you take a derivative for either of the functions? Did you figure something out? Did you start using the answers instead? Guess letter? Just curious. And anybody at all as well. It may be in the process of being typed. I know it's possibly like a very lengthy explanation for it or a lengthy chat. And so with the function, the guess on it, okay. And then so for anyone else with the continuity, thinking about the three conditions that have to happen, we know that we have to make sure that we could plug in for x equals 1 to make it exist. So if I let x equal 1, what do I get in the top function? Well, that's all we can let it equal 1. So, can't write with a straight line. 1 squared minus 3k times 1 plus 2. And that should give us 1 plus 2 minus 3k, or 3. minus the 3k. And so that's going to be what happens when we get there. With that being the continuity of it, well, what is the limit there? We've got to figure out with the 1. If we figure out the limit of the left, we know we have to have the limit on the left equal to the limit on the right for the continuity part 2 anyway. If anything, or the second equation, or expression, I should say. I do think there's a little bit of a time delay. I'm so sorry if there is. If we're plugging in the 1 for that second part, you could say just the 5 minus the k equal to the 3 minus the 3k. We have to find the value of k. So if we do that, well, I can take the k over the other side. Oh, I'm so sorry, put the 5 there, 5x there. Dear Lord. I do that all the time. Alrighty, so if I take the 3 over the other side, I'm going to get the 2. If I add the k over the other side, I'm going to get the negative 2k. So I'm going to get k by itself. If I divide, I know my negative is going to be the solution. I can take that. The b is a very close guess, but we end up with a negative 1. And so just want to be very careful here. When it's coming to the continuity, thinking about the 3 properties that have to exist. I'm going to put them back up again if you want to take a screen grab or something. Just about in chapter, should be the very beginning of chapter 3. I want to say like section 3.1 in any calculus textbook, possibly 2.1 if they've like trimmed down the refresher chapters early on. These are the big 3 that have to be qualified. You just need to make sure that we're looking for the ways here when you're figuring out the actual values. You can let the answers clue you in into like what numbers have to be at least arrived at. They can give you insight into what to look for in the work. You did the right thing if you just using like your letter of the day for that one. It's a good call. If it caught you off guard, we know right away there's a concept to go back and take a look at. And that might be something to keep in mind between now and the next session. Not only are you going to be ranking your questions in the test section as a now, a later, a never, look at the concepts and your comfort level of them. Open up to collegeboard.org, get the concepts covered, and put your list of, I know it, I kinda, and when you're adding concepts to each of those columns, remember, it's very much an indirect relationship with time leading to the test. If you have way more time, you could then devote that time to the concepts and learn something new and get comfortable. As your time, though, goes down, you need to shift focus. With limited time, you kind of have to go and solidify your know it and your kind of know it sections because those are going to be the friendliest ones. The ones are usually reserved when you have like a unlimited time, so to say, before. With the test right around the corner, though, within the next 30 days, you want to make sure that you're putting your focus where it's going to pay off the most for you, playing to the strengths. I can't thank you enough for hanging out with me today. I do hope that it helps. I'm going to pick back up and just keep doing this. Do let me know. I'm going to be keeping an eye out on the YouTube video between now and the next session. If you have any questions, like totally let me know in the chats, the comments. Let me know if you liked what we were doing today with the practice questions. I can definitely structure to get more of these on par, ready to go for you. If it was something where you'd like to see like little mini lessons first, and then I just want to make sure like I'm doing good by you all. None of this is ever possible without you. And I can't thank you enough for all your help today. Like I said, I do truly always hope that this helps. Whatever helps you to get this test behind you, that's my job. Like that's the goal. I just hope it helps always. But I'm going to drop all this for you. Again, I cannot thank you enough for hanging out with me today for this hour. And I'll keep an eye out on all the chats and I'll respond as I see them coming in on the comments in the YouTube video. Thank you again, everyone. I'll see you in a little bit of time for rounds 2 and 3. Take care.